Welcome everyone to yet another PTC Talks, where I'm actually extra excited today by having Stig Martin in the blue economy and saving the oceans by using AI. But first, a very quick introduction by me. My name is Torbjörn Peterson, and I'm the manager for PTC in the Nordics, and we are running all these webinars on the Fridays every week at the same time, where we also invite customers and partners for some inspiration on digital transformation to see what is possible and how to make things happen. And all the past webinars have also been recorded and are to be found in the registration site. The agenda for today is first a very quick overview of PTC by myself, and then Stig Martin will run the show by introducing himself. He will touch base on a few challenges, how to address these, and then explain some of the business outcomes. And at the end, we are having a Q&A session, so please keep your questions to the end, or you may also put them in the chat, and we will pick them up in the Q&A. So over to the next slide, Stig Martin. Thank you. So PTC is a global software company with a headquarters in Boston, and we provide leading solutions on IoT, augmented reality, PLM, SLM, ALM, and CAD through the digital thread to help companies to accelerate their digital transformation. So now over to you, Stig Martin.
Thank you. All right, that was a really quick intro. Thank you for that. Yes, so I'm Stig Martin Fiskå, and I'm based out of Oslo. I am the global head of Cognizant Ocean, an initiative inside Cognizant to both give back to the oceans and save the oceans, but at the same time grow the blue economy, which is projected to be $6 trillion by 2030. So not an insignificant play to have, and includes, of course, a lot of sectors. And around 4 billion, between 3.3 billion and 4 billion people have their livelihood connected on Cognizant, or sorry, on oceans around the world. So it's a big play for us. It's something we're quite proud to work with. It's mission purpose driven, and we're getting quite excited of some of the results we're getting in there, where we're showing balance between exploiting the oceans, rather giving back, and growing the economy at the same time. I'll introduce a little bit of the subject through this video.
The ocean is a vital ingredient to our longevity as a species, and it's in peril.
The technology that you need to be able to understand the ocean at scale is now viable in a way that hasn't been possible. We can look at the major industries using the ocean today and use our technology to help them move towards sustainable operations. The benefit of having Cognizant as a partner is that they can see where other solutions potentially might be.
This is about operationalizing sustainability. It's not just reporting on it. And we want to take what we learn in one industry, say aquaculture, and we want to lead that into marine shipping. And we want to go from marine shipping and aquaculture into blue energy. And if we can scale these solutions around the globe, I think we're all going to notice. We actually can have big impact. So that's me and of course our partner in Alphabet X, the Moonshot Factory, formerly known as Google X, that's speaking and addressing our joint mission of saving the oceans. Now, it's a very, very important subject, and I don't know about you on the call here, but I think most of us have been taught that we have to save the Amazons and the rainforests. I was myself quite surprised to learn that 70 to 80% of the breathable oxygen that we consume as humans is actually, in fact, created by the oceans. And it holds 90% of our carbon today. And that's why it's heating up. That's why it's getting acidic. And that's why it's a very, very important thing to start fixing, as we are basically ruining what keeps us alive. It's over exploited. There's by 2030 more plastic in the ocean than there's going to be fish. I think a lot of us already knows this, that it's heating up, like I mentioned, but it's also known to most of us that the wild stock fish is disappearing. We're getting restrictions everywhere, and we just need to do something about it. It's not a finite resource. And one of the biggest problems with the oceans is that it's so big for a human brain, at the very least, to grasp, and we don't know what's there. A lot of it isn't mapped out. So one of the things we definitely set out to do together with Tidal and Alphabet X is to give a voice to the ocean. We cannot change what we do not understand, and it's such a big place. And I think AI is definitely the part that will play a big change here, as massive amounts of data will be discovered, and advanced ecosystems are being followed. AI is helping us both driving the collection of the data, understanding the data, and being actionable around the data. And that's where we think we can drive a significant difference between growing it in a sustainable way and giving back to the ocean. One of the really hard things in climate and in operating software and hardware in the real world rather than just the digital world is that we as humans have evolved to solve things case by case. That's something we learned. We need to take it down to a single point and use case to be able to make sense of it. But in a climate perspective and an ecosystem perspective, if we do something to the left, not knowing what happens to the right, we might end up just making it worse in the short term or in the long term. And I think we've seen that, all of us, that we're, as humans, we have been ending up doing the wrong choices over and over again. So one of the things we do is really going in with the mindset where we try to understand and measure the whole ecosystem, both on the business side, but definitely on nature side. So Cognizant Ocean is a large group inside an even larger company, and Cognizant is a 355,000, 360,000 employee big company, IT services, professional services, and consulting. That's what we do, and we put our hearts into this. We are taking what we learned from financial services, from different things we've done for the energy industry, etc., and putting it into predominantly these four verticals in front of you. Blue food, it's really important because, first of all, like I mentioned, we're depleting resources, but we're becoming 9 billion people on Earth, and we don't have enough food for them. So in order to grow more sustainable protein, salmon and seafood is a very important part of that. And when it comes to salmon specifically, 1 kilo of feed gives 1 kilo of human feed. That's a very important factor. Agriculture on land is already depleted quite a lot, and typically a cow gives you 35% back to the humans, and then you have to feed it 5 times or 6 times as much as a fish. So that's why that's important. So when we clean up what happens in and help produce more blue food, then we can sustain ourselves and also give back to the oceans by restoring our wild fishing stocks. In blue transportation, obviously that's 2.5 to 3% of the climate emissions. It's also have a lot of other implications and other ways of polluting the oceans and our harbors and our shores. So a very, very important place to do, and it also runs the global economy. In blue life, that is more to the shores and the rivers and the biodiversity in water, both freshwater and saltwater. And it's more about restoring ecosystems and understanding what's happening there. And blue energy, finally, obviously, we're all very fond of the idea of creating a lot more renewable energy, and energy is probably one of the core things we have to fix as a humanity to pivot ourselves to a better future. But while building renewable energy in the oceans, it will also affect life there. There's an ecosystem already there. We don't know too much about it, and in fact, just having one windmill going on the surface, it can affect, of course, bird life and other things. But when you have thousands of these in a field and really, really large fields, just the fact that they're taking energy away from the surface of the ocean itself is changing the ocean. So while the wind is blowing on the ocean, they will blow less on the ocean with so many windmills, and that will have an effect, studies are showing, on the currents, on the oxygen levels of the ocean, etc. So we need to do that in a careful manner, understanding what's there when we build, understanding what's there and what happens while we build, and how we can mitigate some of those things. So this is the core things that we are concerning ourselves with today. And we don't really believe that we can do this alone. And that's also a message to you that are listening in today, that we would like to extend our partnership and both with clients and with other partners in the ecosystem around these problems. But the first thing we did was join up with Tidal, which is part of the Alphabet X that I mentioned. They are really, really good at taking on state-of-the-art technology and creating a novelty. Rather than saying what's off the shelf, what's ready in the market, they actually create it, purpose-driven, and say that this is what I need to do. And they're also creating together with us holistic platforms to run this, both with business-wise, but also taking care again of insights and giving back to the oceans. And in aquaculture, we've come quite far. We've been able to. Sorry, I think I lost something there. In aquaculture, we've gone quite far. You saw in the intro video, but now again here, there's a underwater automatic autonomous robot running. And currently there are around more than 800 of these along the coastline of Norway. They're running inside fish pens, completely autonomously, observing the salmon. There are about 200,000 salmon inside one of these pens. They're observing them if they're hungry, and then they automatically start feeding. They're looking for animal welfare, if they have leishers, if there's lice counts going up, etc., etc. They're even looking at the integrity of the pen itself, the infrastructure itself, if it's being hurt or not, and have holes in it. So it's really looking after the fish in every sense, and at the same time, it's also looking after the business, because it's making sure that the growth trajectory of the fish is well, that the biomass that turns into human feed is treated well, and by reducing and having more intelligent ways of treating the fish, we can cut OPEX costs, which is predominantly tied into feed, and incidentally, well, not so incidentally in this case, feed is also the biggest pollutant, both locally, but also from CO2 emissions. It's about 60% of the industry is feed in CO2 emissions. And of course, locally in the fjords and etc., this also creates a lot of waste. So by doing that, we've been able to see very big uplift. And for the first time in 10 years, the producers are now producing more fish. So that's a big achievement. Lots of good numbers coming out of this if someone cares to have a conversation about that. But this is the proof point. This is productionized. This is running at scale, and there will be many, many more thousands of these as time passes through. It has an accuracy of looking at the estimation of biomass, so how much can be used for human consumption, at 98%. That's pretty damn good over time, over hundreds and hundreds of harvests. And it detects sea lice really early on, so we can do interventions and treat the fish better. And it works 24/7 and by itself. It's able to do a lot of actions, or just warn someone to actually take action as well. And it even does. The AI engine in this even runs projections of what will happen, so we can do things in advance. And then we're taking what we learned in that area and looking how we can take some of the learnings in AI modeling and thinking around planning and projections, and transforming that into shipping. It's a very vulnerable system. 70 to 80% of all global marine shipping is interrupted every day. That's huge. Right now, there's around 27 to 29 days of waiting time to get through the Panama Canal because of climate change. There's less water in there. They have to redo things, and there's not really a good aircrafts and air carriers. They have Amadeus as a system to organize themselves. That doesn't exist here. So there's a lot of things that we can be doing. And we're looking to build this transparency through AI that can look at how the ships and everything that's transported on sea can collaborate much more and do more predictions around interruptions and congestions as well, which is a big problem. So in fact, we're trying to, together with shipping companies right now, we're building this. This is not a small feat, connecting all these dots. But all the way from the harbor, loading on a ship, to whole fleet, to the whole liner, and all the way to the consumer. We are currently working even with clients that are looking all the way from the OEM, from the factory itself, to the end consumer. So not just water. This is not a small operation, so it's not going to be done in a year, but it's underway. And we have some really, really big European clients on this side. And looking into how this is going to work, we also recognize that AI is often seen as a black box for people. We can't understand its reasoning. One of the key things that we think is important in a very big and advanced ecosystem as shipping is to give all the moving parts agency, being able to share their information and inform the other parts of the system. And we built this Gen AI, since that's what everyone's on everyone's mind these days, to show how that can actually work. This is assets speaking to humans and for humans, so we can understand what they're doing and the reasoning from what they're doing, rather than that we didn't have to have that interface, but humans need to understand what's going on and they need to be able to interact with it. And then they focus on in this example, it focuses on how much reduced CO2 we can do by having systems talking together. So it's a, in a lack of a better word, it's a AI brain sitting on top of all these things happening and informing it. And we have a calculated example of how much this can actually be mean in terms of emissions in the Port of LA. Just by improving 2% of berth utilization, which is quite easy if you get away from some of the congestions that's created, we can get down by 900 megatons of CO2. We have calculated that if the whole industry started using this as it is now and implemented it, we can cut $21 billion annually in fuel consumption. I don't know what that means in actual CO2, but I'm sure it's significant. That's why we balance again the growth of the economy and at the same time giving back to ocean health and humanity. And lastly, we're working on things like improving the water quality in the UK right now. So for those of you who live in the UK or follow BBC and other sources there's been a tremendous pressure around very polluted rivers and the reservoirs. And we are looking into how, together with the industry itself, how we can innovate and create devices and AI models to understand where the complexity of all this pollution comes from and how we can intervene and create change and measure that and making sure that we're doing the right thing, the right places. One of the hardest things is just being able to tell what is the definition of a healthy river. And a river in itself is not the same, so they're all different and they all have different ecosystems attached to them. So it's a complex system that's living in a river. And in Blue Energy, we have this. So if you imagine the camera system, the autonomous robot that you saw in Salmon, it's not so hard to imagine that we can do the same to understand what happens in wind farms, not only what happens underwater and listen and see and chemical analysis, but also being able to surveil the installations itself for integrity, etc., etc. But mostly there are now regulations in the US. They're building big farms outside California and New York State. And there are demands that you have to log what's there before you start building, how it affects the system when you build, and the interventions you're doing to get away from some of the problems you create. So that's what we're doing, and this is what we're working on. It's quite exciting and quite purposeful. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Steve Martin, for sharing all this very interesting stuff on actually how to use AI to drive sustainability. So now actually over to you in the audience. If you have any questions, raise your hand or put it in the chat and we will pick the questions up here. And I think we had one actually first question for here for you, and that was, why did Alphabet X and Tidal choose Cognizant to work with this, and why did it all start in Norway?
Yes, that's an excellent question. And in fact, when I brought this to our leadership, they were a bit surprised that, first of all, X is an institution which is quite secretive and it's hard to reach them. And they were even more so surprised that there was a person in Oslo that was the one they spoke to. Of course, I had some personal relationships, but the reason why is quite simple. In Norway is the only place you'll find all of these four sectors at the same time. We have salmon, the biggest salmon production in the world. We have we're pretty big in shipping. Renewable energy or offshore energy is obviously quite big in Norway. And we have plenty of water and rivers and hydro energy as well. And for the Cognizant thing, it was important for them to come close to an integrator, but not just technical integrator, but someone who can integrate between enterprise problems and their extreme, edgy, innovative thinking, so we can mediate between them and integrate the best for both worlds. We also have the mindset that we want to be, while we might not be quite as edgy as the edgiest people inside Silicon Valley and X, we want to get closer to them at the same time keeping close to the clients.
Thanks a lot. Another question is also related to the timings. You pretty much managed to time this whilst one of the biggest hypes in AI actually occurred. So a very good timing indeed. But what are the challenges that leaders see in heavy asset industry to utilize and adopt AI from your point of view?
I think that's an excellent question, and I think the biggest challenge is that while it was very big changes and big transformations to do this in finance and other areas, they don't have the heavy assets. They don't interact at the same level with the physical world. And I think when we need to realize is that if we're going to be able to change the actual operations of heavy asset industry, we need to have devices that also interact very well with software. And I like to think about this as the Apples of the world or the Teslas of the world, where you go together and combine the very best and purpose-driven hardware and purpose-driven software, and then you have the intelligence of AI, and thinking about that holistically. And that's a hard chore. So as a leader, I think you really need to start listening to the people who has that kind of knowledge and trust, and move away from procurement mindset saying I want to buy this, to investment side mindset and saying I want to learn this, and I do need to put in some risk to get there. It's not something you can just buy off the shelf.
Yeah, right. Thanks a lot. Another question was also related to, is it actually digitalization, AI, decarbonization and sustainability, or the usual sort of suspects with the cost and the capex that drives your conversations mostly? Or how does it look like?
We weren't us and X, we weren't naive enough to think that people would engage us and do this just because we would do the right thing for the oceans and for the nature. That unfortunately, that's not always enough. So we went into this always thinking that we had to have a good business case, but we wanted to co-create that with the clients rather saying, I'm going to spend 5 years in a lab and then hope that there will come out some results in the other end. We've been quite surprised how many leaders out there that are ready to talk about this and who wants to and are looking for ways to balance giving back to society and nature and also meeting their goals. I think there's a lot of frustration out there from all these climate change and all these new regulations coming and hitting them, and also how can I contribute? Is a common problem that people have. I mean, all of us. How can I contribute in face of such a large challenge? And what we're seeing is a lot of leaders that are ready to have that discussion. They're ready to balance those two things, and when they understand that the technology in reality can do most of these things already if you just have the right mindset, then we are seeing a lot of buy-in that these are problems they want to solve. So I'm surprised how many who have been grinding on this problem for a long time and are looking for people and companies to work with that are willing also to stand shoulder to shoulder and co-create these solutions. So it's not easy, and it doesn't move as fast as sometimes we could wish, but I certainly am surprised that there are a lot more leaders taking responsibility for their society than just the next quarter Wall Street numbers.
Right, excellent. I agree with you on that, definitely. And what about yourself? I mean, mostly, what is your, most excited about going forward? I mean, when it comes to the cognizant ocean.
You know, I think when we get to really sign off, I mean, if it's cleaning up a river and not every river, if it's making sure that one ship liner reduces their carbon emissions with 5%, 10%, that just makes it all meaningful. It's that's what I'm looking to do. But I think if in a year or two from now, if we can see a systemic change to the approach of how to solve these problems and how to, rather than trying to report ourselves to a solution and try to look at an Excel sheet to find the solution, just start creating solution and understand that the time is now. We are already late to the game. Then that's a legacy that would be wonderful to have been part of.
Right. So related a little bit about to what you just said, 12 months, out from now, how have you sort of, impacted the world, do you think?
I think in blue food, in aquaculture, it's already happened. I think hopefully we're seeing some really big scale outside of Norway. I think in shipping, that is an industry that is mature for this. So I think 12 months from now, we're talking about how the whole ecosystem of shipping is collaborating and sharing data for the best of everyone. And I think in energy, it's the holistic approach around how we can build renewable energy that is so important for us at the same time without doing too much damage to the surroundings around us and the oceans or anywhere else. And then I really, really hope that what we usually say is if we are able to do this in the ocean, then we can do it anywhere else. So that's, if it even floats out of the water, then I'm really happy.
Yeah, good point. So time is actually unfortunately running out. So many thanks everyone for joining in this session here. And of course, a special thanks to you, Stig Martin, for sharing a lot of really exciting stuff here. So with that, I hope to see you back already next week for the PTC talks about using on-shape models for robotic assembly with a company called CAE Tech. So many thanks for that, and stay tuned for the next week, and have a fantastic weekend, everyone. See you. Bye-bye.